Many people know that rising sea levels have become a big issue, especially for those living in coastal cities. But what exactly is causing these sea levels to rise? What exactly are the issues that these coastal cities could be facing? And what are the measures being taken in order to save these coastal cities? In order to get a better understanding of why this is important and to gain deeper knowledge on this issue at hand, we first turn to an EcoWatch article written by Cole Melano. According to Melano, if fossil fuel consumption maintains its current rate, Antarctica could experience a widespread collapse of its ice shelves, which could spur significant sea level rise. Along with this, Doyle Rice's USA Today article states, as the Earth's temperature warms, so does the seas. Heat-trapping greenhouse gases cause more land ice to melt and water to expand. Warmer water simply takes up more room than cooler water. This suggests that the human consumption of fossil fuels like CO2 is warming the atmosphere, thus causing the ice shelves to melt and further causing a rise in sea levels. It also tells us that the seawater will continue to expand as the ocean temperatures increase, also causing the sea levels to rise. Now that we have a basic understanding of climate change's effects on sea level, we can look into the effects the rising sea levels will have on coastal cities. Revisiting Melano's article, it states researchers found that 414 towns and cities have reached the point that guarantees that over half of the populated land in these cities will ultimately be underwater, regardless of how much we decrease our carbon emissions. This tells us that millions of people could be displaced in the coming future as the rising sea levels swallow up their homes. Research is predicting that New York could see 8-foot floods every 5 years by 2030, floods which used to occur only once every 500 years. Along with this, the sea level is said to likely rise up to 11 inches by 2030 in the New York area. These floods and rising sea levels put New York at a huge risk for community and natural resource threats. New York's Department of Environmental Conservation wrote an article outlining the risks of sea level rise on the state of New York. These outlined risks include increased frequency and intensity of severe flooding and storm surge damage to communities, infrastructure, and ecosystems, increased erosion of beaches and bluffs, saltwater infiltration of freshwaters, and damage to energy infrastructure systems. These are just some of the risks for the state of New York. This growing threat of sea level rise is causing cities to prepare for flooding like never before. Coastal cities and towns all over the globe are facing the threat of losing homes, buildings, and natural landscapes. This could displace millions of people from their homes and decrease the amount of livable land available. In an attempt to prevent this, major cities have started to take action. Jamie Conlife's Business Insider article explains some of the measures being taken to fight the rising sea levels in New York. Outside of Manhattan, street levels are being raised so sidewalks and roads stand taller than before. And in Breezy Point, new homes are being built on raised platforms to save them from floods. In another article published by David Martin for Forbes, he explains that there is also a $20 billion master plan to raise the seawall and create a green space in the city along the water. To get a better idea of what this master plan will look like, here's a short video clip from the AFP news agency.
New York City is not moving upstate. New York City is where it is. It developed over the last 400 years, and we are here because we are the gateway to America.
The city is currently considering a system of raised earthworks and walls stretching around lower Manhattan, home to Wall Street. Called the Big U, this simulation shows what the project could look like. Less glamorous changes to the building code are just as important. Things like moving key amenities above ground level will help reduce the damage of flooding if it does happen. All of this is part of a $20 billion climate action package instigated by former Mayor Michael Bloomberg. It has broad political backing, hopefully ensuring that even if Donald Trump's administration denies the reality of climate change, the Big Apple won't go under.
Many other coastal cities around the world are taking similar action, like those of New York, to combat the rising sea levels. For many coastal cities and towns, dealing with major floods or even the complete loss of livable land is already inevitable. Greenhouse gases like CO2 have drastically increased both the speed at which the ice caps are melting and the speed at which ocean water temperatures are rising. If we want to slow or even stop this global problem from getting any worse than it already is, we must all work together to combat climate change. There are many ways that this can be done on an individual and national level. Individuals can use their cars less by carpooling. You can also help by recycling and minimizing the amount of packaged foods bought to reduce the amount of garbage that would end up in landfills or the ocean. Nationally, businesses can cut their carbon emissions by using less unnecessary energy or installing green energy grids like solar panels. The governments can also install green energy grids like wind and solar energy. For some coastal areas, it is too late to stop the unavoidable flooding. But if the world works together to reduce our carbon footprint, we can stop the rising sea levels and climate change in its tracks.